Well, one of the most frequent questions I get is, how do I keep my fish tanks looking so clean? And I thought it would be a perfect time to just bring you in a day in the life of me cleaning my tanks. We're gonna go through all these tanks, we're gonna do some water changes, we're gonna clean up some plant trimmings, and we're gonna get them looking nice, clean, and ready. So without further ado, let's get some towels placed on this carpet, let's get all of our aquascaping tools out, and let's get into these tanks. All right, now we got all of our towels placed down. We have all of our tools we're gonna be needing for Daphne's tank laid out nicely on our little table, and we got our Python hooked up to the hose outside. Realistically, during these light maintenance days where I'm not deep cleaning anything or going into any filter, the only thing I really like to focus on is trimming up any dead plants or debris, giving the glass a nice little clean scrape, and doing about a 20 to 50% water change. And something I always recommend is start on your tanks that are the most easy to do. I always like starting on Daphne's tank because it has relatively zero to no problems with it. And I feel like it's just a good warm up. You know, it gets my mind into the groove of it, gets me into a good flow. So when I move on to one of my other tanks that require a little bit more effort and attention, I'm already warmed up, I'm already on it. So without further ado, let's get this glass clean and start looking for some plants to take out, and we'll be on our way to making this tank look that much better. So as you can see here, there was not a lot of trimmings that we had to do, but I just wanted to show you kind of the different levels of why I trimmed these out. Obviously for my immerse grown plants, this Monstera leaf was not doing anything good in the tank. The bottom of the stem was actually rotting in the water, and anything that's rotting, that's just gonna cause excess nutrients that leads to algae. So you wanna get things like this out. If you have any plants growing out of the top of your water, make sure you're keeping up on the maintenance of them and you're trimming them up frequently and taking any dead leaves off. Showing some aquatic leaves. At first glance, this leaf does seem kind of healthy, but as you can see at the tips here, it's starting to grow some blackbeard algae. So what that shows me is two things. One, either that this plant is not that healthy and it's not receiving as much nutrients as it needs, because algae begins to grow on leaves when the leaf stops growing so fast. The algae is able to take root on a plant that has kind of paused its growth, and it starts to take over. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to be a little proactive and take this leaf out so it doesn't spread. And then we have some Anubis leaves. So Anubis can be kind of tricky because Anubis is an extremely slow growing plant. And as you can see, this is some form of a deficiency. I don't know whether that's gonna be some potassium because it's little tiny holes, but I just want to get it out. The rest of my Anubis is fairly healthy, so I just want to get these problem leaves out of the way so it doesn't get covered in algae, and eventually these leaves don't start to rot. So I always recommend, first thing you do when you're cleaning up your tank is just go through it with a pair of scissors. I just use these curved UNS scissors and trim up any leaves that look a little suspect or they just look too happy and they're not really adding to your aquascape. So now that this is out of the way, I like to go ahead, turn off the filter and use our Flipper glass cleaner. This thing is a breeze. It just magnets to the glass there, and you'll see how easy it is just to whip this thing across your tank and get your glass nice and clean. So let's do that. We'll get the filter turned off, and we're one step closer to being done with our first tank already. pro tip I want to share with you guys, if you're wanting to see where your glass is, clean or dirty, something I always recommend, look from the side into your front panel. When you look directly onto the glass, sometimes little algae spots might be hiding, but if you peek in from the side here, you can see where you might have missed something. All right, now it is on to the pea puffer tank. And as you can see, this tank is probably in the roughest shape out of any of the tanks in the room, but it's gonna be easy to take care of. Brown algae, in my opinion, is one of the easier algae to take care of. It comes off incredibly easy and it's quite fun to do. And as you can see, we have some buckets here. Unlike Daphne's tank, I use a mix of RO water and tap water just because these pea puffers, they don't like a really hard tap water. So I just use some RO water to soften that down a bit. And realistically, we're just gonna get in here, we're gonna grab all that algae up, do a light gravel scrape. We might touch up the filter. I might leave that alone though, trim up some plants, and this pea puffer tank is gonna absolutely shine when we're done with it. Little quick tip I wanted to show you guys. I'm sure you've all experienced it, but when you're going to clean your glass, you always have that little bit that's sticking off from the silicone edge, and it's never recommended to take your algae scraper anywhere near that silicone because it might break that silicone. But how do we get it clean? There's two things that I like to do to get this clean. My first tip is just to get a cheap little toothbrush and just use the bristles to clean the inside of that silicone. You don't have to press very hard because you want to be careful of the silicone, but what these little toothbrushes will do is it'll get your edges really clean just like that, and we don't have to endanger our silicone. Another tip I like to use is just a regular paper towel. If you don't have a toothbrush, I guarantee you got some form of a paper towel in your house. You can just get it and fold it up, and you can take it and run the paper towel right along the inside of that glass, and the abrasiveness from the paper towel will do just the same thing, and it'll get that algae taken right up. Well, it looks like we just made the situation worse, but what I did off camera is the algae that didn't come off by me just kind of twirling it up, I went and took my toothbrush and I tried to dislodge it from all the plants in the woods, and what that's doing is preparing it to be more easily suctioned up with our siphon. So before, it had kind of a good hold on where it was at, but since I went in there, I used the toothbrush and my fingers and just kind of dislodged it. Now we can get our siphon and just go to town vacuuming this all up, and I guarantee you this tank is going to look really good after we're done. So let's get the siphon started and get some water moving. All right, and just like that, we were able to get all of that algae taken out. We were able to skim the bottom of any debris, any uneaten food or pea puffer poop, which they poop a lot, which is ridiculous. We were able to get the filter cleaned up just a little bit. And overall, just like I was thinking, the brown algae was a dream to take care of. I think the only thing now I have to look out for is I might reduce my feeding a little bit, and I might take the light down just a little bit as well, just to give this new aquascape some time to settle and really build up its defenses so this brown algae doesn't come back. I'm gonna go ahead, get the glass all clean, get the filter back on, and we're gonna keep on moving over to the next tank, and I think this is gonna be an awesome day of maintenance. All right, so next up on the agenda is taking care of the roots tank. This one is gonna require a little bit more attention and more intricate things that we're doing with it, just because in my fish room, this is probably the most complicated aquascape I have, not only in its design, but just how tough it is to get into this tank. As you notice, these wood roots do look extremely cool, but on maintenance day, it is a struggle. So I have to be very careful with how I'm moving my hands and my arms in the tank. But in general, we're gonna be doing the same thing we're doing with all the other tanks in this video. I'm gonna observe the tank and see if there's any leaves or plants that I just don't want or don't like in there or just aren't growing well. Get those out. We're also gonna trim up some of these roots on here just to give some more swim space. I really wanna get rid of this moss that's in here. I thought I could deal with moss, but honestly, I just don't like it. Whenever I trim it, it just gets everywhere. And I've noticed that some of the moss has actually fallen down below here, and it's actually suffocating the roots of my plants because it's growing over them. So we're gonna get rid of all the moss. We're gonna trim up this, I think this is Typeria mini. We're gonna trim this up, take it down a little bit, and disperse it throughout the bottom. Main reason being, since this is so tall, I feel that it's taking away some of the depth perception with this being so tall, and you kind of lose that feel of it going back in there. And beyond that, that's pretty much all we got. So let's get our scissors out and get back into the flow state and get this tank looking pretty again. Let's do it. All right, as I'm finishing up taking care of all the plants and trimming in this tank, I thought it'd be an awesome time to give you a little tip from me. One thing before you get started on moving plants around, trimming them, anything in the tank, I always recommend turn off your filter. What that will do is it'll reduce the water flow in your tank to an absolute standstill. So when you trim up trimmings or you mess up some debris down here, instead of the filter pushing it crazy around the entire water column, instead they'll just slightly rise up to the top, or they will just fall down in the bottom for you to get your siphon and clean it right up. So let's get this tank finished so we can show you how good this is gonna look when I'm done with it. I'm excited. Another pro tip, do not forget about any equipment you have hidden in the back of your tank. I almost forgot about my surface skimmer here, and as you can tell, it looks like I've been forgetting about this for a couple weeks now. Technically, these things should never get this dirty. At this point, this is not doing anything good for the surface skimmer. So what I'm gonna do is just rinse this underwater real quick and easy and pop it right back in there.
Oh boy.
Well, I guess we're tearing the scape down. Oh man, all right, we're good.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost done with this tank and disaster struck. I knew it was gonna happen eventually. I had a feeling, and the glue and the silicone, it all just gave out and actually toppled into the fish tank as I was doing a water change, and Max and I tried to reattach the wood into where I had it, but it was just not happening. So I just accepted defeat, and we're just gonna go ahead for now, take that wood piece out. I'm probably gonna leave this set up as is until I have time to eventually just tear it all down. Yes, at first, man, am I a little mad right now, but you know, as we always say, push forward, find reasons to, you know, the silver lining. The silver lining is we pulled off an incredible aquascape. It looked amazing for as many months as it did. The fish and plants are all healthy, so all I really need to do is just take this all out, come up with a better scape, and just nail it that much more, and use this failure as fire under my ass, or I can't say ass, we can bloop that out, to make a better scape. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna take my little frustrations, and I'm gonna hopefully turn it into something productive and come out with an even better scape, because yes, I could get really mad and frustrated, but look at this. It's a great tank, great plants, great everything. So let's just keep on moving on. I'm gonna put some more water in there, get the filter going, make sure the fish are nice and healthy, and we'll move on to the rest of the tanks in the room, because we only got 2 more to do. We're not gonna let this ruin our day, ruin our flow. We're gonna keep on going. All right, now we're on to the 40-gallon breeder with the Congo tetras and bleeding hearts in here. This is honestly one of my favorite tanks in my collection. It just is the most natural, and it is also the most easy to take care of. Taking care of this tank, pretty much all I do is I start by up top with this Vallisneria. Sometimes what happens with this val is small pieces will just break off like this, and you'll notice that they start to brown. And you've heard me say it before, once plants start to brown, they actually start releasing some excess nutrients that just feeds your algae, and it's not really good for your tank. So the first thing I always do is I get into here and I look for any damaged val, I look for any dead ones, and I just lightly trim them all up. And then next, we're just gonna do what we do for all our tanks. We're gonna get our water siphon out, try to clean up some of this debris down here, look for any other hot spots, clean the glass, and we are on to the next tank. Well, that about wraps up our day taking care of all the tanks in my little office. It's been a good day. There's been some good things, there's been some failures, but all in all, we were able to get all the tanks looking nice and clean and back for another couple weeks of them looking really good. I appreciate you guys following along and watching my journey on all things aquascaping. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot. I've been noticing YouTube's telling me there's like 97% of everybody watching my video is not subscribed. So if we can get some of those people to be subscribed and grow the channel to become bigger and better, that allows me to provide bigger and better projects for all of you guys. But till the next time, have a wonderful weekend, night, wherever you're at, and I'll see you later.